All right, Ricky Flex, we have the first feature film of Phase 4 in the MCU. Shang-Chi is here, not Shang-Chi. Excuse me. We're talking Shang-Chi, starring Simu Liu, right? In his first ever Marvel feature. Let's get to the details. Let's get to the synopsis. Then we'll go over this explosion of a movie, one that has taken over the box office, that has made over $90 million in its Labor Day opening weekend, the highest for any movie of all time. So, Rotten Tomatoes has it. Critic score 92%. Fuego. Audiences have it at 98%. That is the highest rated superhero film of all time, most popular among audiences. IMDb has it at 8.0 out of 10. Let's get the Google synopsis before we start discussing. Martial arts master Shang-Chi confronts the past he thought he left behind when he's drawn into the web of the mysterious 10 Rings organization led by his own father, played by Tony Leung. So, Ricky Flex, before we drop and get really deep into this film, what were your expectations heading in, looking at the trailer, looking at the hype on Twitter? How are you feeling?
So they had two of the fight sequences released on Twitter and on social media, and they looked fantastic. So I had high expectations for the fighting sequences. For the movie itself, I didn't have incredibly high expectations. That's not normal. I still had high expectations, but to the same extent of a normal Marvel movie, not to the same as like an Iron Man or a core Avenger, but just to a normal Marvel movie, like similar to a Black Widow, I would say. But then when I see these Rotten Tomato scores just flying through the roof, already certified fresh before its opening weekend, then I had high expectations for it. Like that, what else am I going to say? I had higher expectations. And yeah, like that's kind of how I went into the movie. How about yourself?
So it's interesting because I think Black Widow actually took away from this movie a bit, because I think Black Widow was kind of a deflating start to the MCU in terms of Phase 4. I mean, that was the first feature film, I guess, of Phase 4, not Shang-Chi, yeah. But Shang-Chi kind of exploded, right? Both in terms of my opinion and public opinion, that it really feels like, okay, now we're going right now. We've moved past Black Widow. We moved past these Disney Plus series, although they're going to keep on coming. Marvel What If dropped today. I still have to catch up with that. We got the Avengers as zombies. Man, I wish I watched that before so we could have talked about it on this episode. But as I guess the hype train started to build, it really just felt like almost like a Phase 1 movie, because we were almost back to that origin, that less connectivity to the MCU. So I wasn't too pumped about it. Yes, we're getting Wong in the trailer. Yes, we have a throwback to Abomination, but we have a that is wild. We're going to get to that, but we have a relatively unknown actor. So this is where it feels like Phase 1, like Chris Hemsworth stepping in as Thor, right? Not a well-known actor. All right. You have Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston, relatively unknown. Chris Evans is mainly known as basically a pretty boy before he takes on Captain America. Simu Liu is known as this Canadian actor who's best known for Kim's Convenience, a comedy show. What the heck is he doing, playing a Bruce Lee-esque type of role?
Or a stock image.
Yes, or a stock image guy. Those pictures were unreal. He was destined for stardom once I saw those. So I guess, Ricky Flex, where I want to go, I think where this movie really pops is the action sequences, the style of this movie. It's really a throwback to a lot of different kung fu movies. I was getting personally a lot of Jackie Chan vibes. What did you think of the fight sequences, and did you have a favorite?
They were fantastic. They were some of the best fight sequences, not just in superhero history, but in just film history, I thought.
Wow.
That's a statement, I know.
Ricky.
And the best one that really showcased it was the first one on the bus. The first one on the bus was by far and away the best one. And a detractor I have for this movie is the CGI fighting. The CGI fighting took away from the point of the movie. I thought, in my eyes, like I was just like, what are we doing? Like, we should be focusing on the origin of this character. We shouldn't be having these CGI battles of dragons and whatever. Spoiler, but not really. But the fighting sequences were fantastic. Another gripe I have with them, though, I wish they didn't release them beforehand. I wish we just saw it on the big screen for the first time, because again, this wasn't on Disney Plus. So the only way you would see this movie is in theaters. Imagine seeing those fight sequences for the first time in theaters. That would have been awesome. But still, it was great to see.
That comes with the MCU hype machine. When these trailers come out, any MCU trailer comes out, the whole Twitter sphere explodes, the whole fan verse explodes. But I thought those, even though we knew they were coming, they still blew my mind. Even with Aquafina driving the bus, like against those cars, it still had those comedic moments. And then it also just had unbelievable, like hand-to-hand combat. It really did feel like I was watching like Jackie Chan in his prime. Like Simu Liu looks like he is going to be like established in this MCU in the future, especially by the post-credit scenes that we're going to get to eventually. But I couldn't agree more. Him after he meets his sister, right, fighting alongside the building with the glass shattering. I thought there was parts of it you're like, damn, that's like pretty unrealistic. And so was the bus scene, obviously.
Yeah.
But that comes with like a kung fu movie. Like it's not realistic. So that I think they leaned into it really well.
I agree.
In terms of the CGI, I think we should wait until like a little bit towards the end because that is the finishing of the movie.
Yeah.
And
and also the 10 rings, like, you know.
Yeah, dude, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
There was some intense moments there. The final fight with Tony Leung, but also when he's fighting his aunt, who's played by
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. Even those fight sequences I enjoyed, right? And they almost brought up those mystic abilities in the MCU, something we really haven't seen. I guess you can kind of qualify the Infinity Stones as those, but it really had that like kung fu vibe to it, and I just really enjoyed it. So I want to ask you. Oh, sorry, were you gonna?
What was shocking? So for me, like if the director David Cretton, like he has never done a CGI or action movie before. Like this is the man that directed Just Mercy, like one of the saddest like things I've seen in the past couple of years. Like he's never done a movie like this. So the ability and the action sequences, the way they were shot and the direction and organization around them was so impressive. And I was just shocked that this person, like I found out after the fact, I didn't know he had no prior action experience, and that this was his first go at it. And obviously you have the Marvel backbone behind it, so that helps. But still, like very impressed with it.
So it's kind of interesting because this director is known for small screen like adaptions or small screen projects, but you have a writer for this movie who has written Wonder Woman 1984, who has written Godzilla, and he's known for these big movies. So what this movie I think did well, it had those smaller sequences, especially in terms of the action, where you had like it felt like it wasn't this like God level movie at some points, right? It's just Shang-Chi taking on a couple of guys, has that kung fu vibe, but then you have the writing of a large scale director. It almost was a happy medium that was pretty perfect. It's pretty spot on.
I agree with that, because it's this movie, besides the actual action sequences, the whole origin of Shang-Chi, I would say, is probably the most out of all the superhero origins in the Marvel universe that we've seen over the past 20 years. This is the most grounded, like family oriented
depth
origin story. Yeah, there's a lot of depth to it, and when it comes to family, there's obviously going to be that, and they really dug deep with that, and having this director with that experience, that drama experience, really helped with that. And then they could balance that out by not diving too deep with that, with the big action sequences, with the CGI, with the writer that, like you said, was on Godzilla, the Godzilla movie, Wonder Woman 1984. Yikes. And yeah, so it's a good balance there.
Yikes. So I guess where I want to go next is I brought up when we were talking about the expectations for the film. It looked like a phase 1 MCU movie to me as we were watching the trailers, the looser connectivity to the universe. Yes, we had the connections to Wong and Abomination, but this is coming in phase 4. Right. So did you like the aspect that it was basically Shang-Chi on his own adventure? Or do you think like MCU fans are, or even yourself, were a bit disappointed it didn't have maybe that more exciting cameo or that post-credit scene that connects to a larger hero or some sort? Were you okay with Shang-Chi like basically having his own stage here to perform on?
So I love his own stage during the movie. I think that's the way to go. Like, make sure the character can develop on its own, see how it does, because then you could see how does this character relate to your plans in the future. Is this person really gonna hit or with the audiences or bust? And I think Shang-Chi really hit, which is great. But the post-credit scene was, we're in non-spoiler territory right now, was like, I hated both of them.
Wow.
I thought they were trash. I really would, because you want something to look forward to. And like it does give you that, but not really compared to the past post-credit scenes. Like it doesn't really answer any questions. It doesn't open any questions. You kind of already knew what they showed us. So, and then the second one you didn't know, but it was like, okay, whatever, like non-core, doesn't matter. So the whole point of a post-credit scene is that's what you want to leave the theater talking about. Like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see this, a part of this, or this how this movie is going to connect with the Avengers or something like that. And like this one just kind of fell flat for me. But again, it's just a post-credit scene. It doesn't affect my score or anything related to the movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna save my thoughts for the post-credit till we get to the spoiler section, because I definitely have some thoughts there and I have some fun questions for us to get into. But where I want to go next, I think this movie, if I drew comparisons to another in the MCU, I think a natural one would be Black Panther. Why do I say that? The cultural representation, right? You had Black Panther showing Black culture, right? Really leaning into it. And this one really leaned into Asian culture, customs, and it took pride in it. And I think that really shows like the scale of the MCU, how wide it has become, and how it's like all these different types of people coming together. I think it's setting up a huge type of, maybe like they talked about Secret Wars as a potential like MCU movie coming together. We're going to see like an assembly eventually of all these vast characters that were already established in phase 1, 2, and 3. And now we're building into phase 4. It could be something special. And like, I just want to get your thoughts on how do you think they did in terms of cultural representation in this movie? And is it as good as what I'm kind of like spelling it out to be?
I think you're dead on. I think that the parallels to Black Panther are pretty apparent. Obviously, different cultures, but father-son relationship. This one's a little different, but still, like, it has their differences that they combat with. You have the brother-sister relationship. Obviously, not the same, but still, it still has the same family depth that we talked about earlier.
Huge.
And I would say the Wakanda relationships and that parallel with the what, like the home, their home. Like that home and the toxic environment around it, kind of not really toxic, but you're enclosed, that you're kept captive around the border. And this one, you're kept captive in this complex. Like it's kind of like a prison to the siblings. So I definitely agree with the parallels in the Asian culture. I completely agree. It's still mind-boggling how this movie won't be shown in China, at least not in the near future.
I know, what a crime. That's a crime, dude.
And it's not even related to the movie. It's related to the origins back in like the 70s and 80s. Like it's absolutely, and it's not even related to the main character.
Yeah, Mandarin has some some racist views in the comics that they didn't it was the Chinese government. It's like don't want even associate, they don't want to be associated with, so therefore they don't want to release Shang-Chi.
Yeah, it's like the Fu Manchu that was released, and they thought that it was like obviously derogatory towards Asian culture, which is not my place to say. But Kevin Feige was so pissed.
I don't blame him. That's how much money of an MCU movie comes from China.
And Shang-Chi would have destroyed the box office. So hopefully they can release that, not just for the numbers, but for the Asian community. That would be fantastic, because they would love this more than anybody. This really this played homage to that.
Yeah, and like even like they paid homage to like even old school movies. Like I would say like Asian movies, like even Kung Fu Hustle, where it's like it has, because like this balances like a good amount of comedy with the action, you know. It felt like almost like I don't want to say Rush Hour, but like Kung Fu Hustle, I think is a great comparison.
I think that's a good comparison. You could see when he was in his room, he had in both rooms when he was a kid, and also I think, or just when he was older in San Francisco, he had like Warriors and Kung Fu Hustle posters on his wall.
I saw that.
And a few others. So it was kind of paying homage there as well. I bet some Easter egg Twitter sites will start churning those out now the movie's been out almost a week. So yeah, it definitely tried to pay homage, and it's just crazy how it's not out in China and not going to be in the near future.
It did. Speaking of I guess like pop culture right now, we're talking about a Marvel movie. Did you see that theory on Twitter that Lil Nas X survived the snap in Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War?
Makes sense, unless he made it like in the Marvel universe, he made it just after.
Because they're singing the Old Town Road in 2019, which it came out in 2019. Therefore, he survived the snap, and so now I think it went super viral on Reddit and then also on Twitter.
Right.
It's just it was a nice little. I guess that's MCU fans just like going full hardo on us.
As always, when did they not? Or we?
So we talked about the hand-to-hand combat. Let's go on to the CGI aspect of this movie, because I think the third act, what I really didn't like about it is because like it felt like a phase 1 MCU movie because of the ending primarily. So we have like this unique kung fu style hand-to-hand combat, super choreographed fighting sequences. And how does it all end? By a dragon fighting a dragon, right? But I must say, this movie, in terms of the CGI, I think it looked beautiful. Like, even though it's not how we want the movie to end necessarily after what it's built up to, I really think they did a great job with it. And especially in that world, right, where they go to Shang-Chi's aunt's basically compound, basically her with her warriors, right, where his mother is supposedly like behind the wall and everything. I thought like the different types of animals, they were creative. It almost had that Wakanda vibe where it built like a special environment or community, or a strong knit one that you were talking about before. So what do you think about the CGI in this film, Flex?
Well, just to go off what you just said, like in that community is, again, what we were just talking about, like the Asian culture, like that with all the dragons and the lions and everything, that also paid homage there as well. But the CGI, like, again, it wasn't like bad CGI. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't terrible. But it's just went against what the whole movie was, really. It was all about hand-to-hand combat, and it was all about this human aspect to it. And then we just get a huge CGI fight fest at the end. I just thought it went against what the whole movie, like, it's like what it was doing the entire time. And again, it's kind of like the MCU's pattern with origin movies, especially. But I just didn't like that at all. But hey, like, I still enjoyed the action sequences, and it wasn't terrible CGI, so I won't dock it too much, but I really didn't like it.
It's exactly what Deadpool 2 like made fun of, where it's like big CGI fight
Yes.
coming up. It's like,
yes,
that's what I literally felt like when I saw the dragons. I'm like, big CGI fight, let's go. It felt like at the end of every MCU film.
it's
But
ridiculous.
I also just we brought up Tony Leung, a powerful performance. I think he's a great addition to the Marvel villain group. I would say I think he's more of a top tier villain, more with a an understandable motive, like going along the lines of a Killmonger or Thanos. I think Tony Leung also has like a commanding presence on screen. So I want to go into like the supporting cast here, because I think we talked about Leung a good amount. He's also a very famous Asian actor, that one that has gravitas. And you're talking about like China not being able to see this movie. Like Tony Leung is not going to be able to see seen by the Chinese community. That's a travesty.
And like him and Hong Kong and Chinese community, like
Huge.
that's where most of his work is, and relatively not independent, but like smaller films. So yeah, I guess independent, but a lot of his films are smaller in nature and not as widely regarded or not as widely seen here. And with Tony Leung, like, I'm sure you've seen the interviews that they were doing, him, Simu, and Aquafina, and everyone else was doing for this press tour, trying to get people to see this movie. And Simu was like in awe of him. He was always putting him in the same aspect, and probably is, as like Brad Pitt and like all the best actors. He literally said Brad Pitt as like one of the people, as in like, oh, I look at him the same as like people look at Brad Pitt.
He's a hero.
So yeah, exactly. So he's a huge actor, but people in America might not know him as well. But what do? You have Aquafina on the screen. You have Michelle Yeoh on the screen, and a lot of crazy rich Asians are in this movie.
We're gonna get into them.
This huge Asian cast, similar to Black Panther with the black, mainly black cast. This one all Asian cast but with a lot of familiar faces. So it really capitalized off of the crazy rich Asians, but also separated itself as well. And he had those familiar faces to connect with American audiences, where this movie isn't seen in China right now, in Hong Kong.
Literally, I would say there was at least 4 crazy rich Asian characters in this film, and I think they were all decent additions. I kind of want to go into Aquafina, because she historically on this podcast does not have a fantastic reputation or a stellar reputation. I think personally, I didn't mind her acting in this movie. However, I didn't like the fact that she's basically Shang-Chi's sidekick. I know that they have a strong connection, but I thought she had no business being with him the entire way of the movie, let alone like at the end of the movie in the post-credit scene. Are we setting an expectation that Aquafina is going to be with Shang-Chi by his side every time he's fighting in a movie? You know, I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
I don't agree with you more. It made no sense. I thought so. I am an Aquafina, not hater, but just in Crazy Rich Asians, I didn't love her in it. I've said it before in the rom-com, top billing. Just I think she's a little much. And I thought in this movie, I thought she was almost like on point. Almost. Still a little sometimes, but like just because I thought that the relationship and chemistry between the two of them were very good. And
Agreed.
I thought that helped her case for not like playing it over the top, even though sometimes she did, but I'll bypass that. But moving on, I do agree with you. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Why just have the sidekick like not be a sidekick and just be like her best friend, his best friend? Like why does she have to be fighting? Why does she have to do this? It made no sense.
It's like having Ned Leeds with Spider-Man. Like he's not next to him while he's fighting the entire time. Yeah, and like, he's gonna reunite with him, and then like they're gonna show a moment of affection, or like even with Mary Jane, it's like you don't have them fighting. And I thought like her ending and having a big part. I won't do a full spoiler. Having a big part in the demise of the quote unquote villain of this movie or the dragon. I was like, this is so unlikely. And I know it's a Marvel movie, but
and it was trying to tie in like how she hasn't done anything with her honors degree or whatever. But
yeah,
it's like still
that's a stretch. Like you can't aim for whatever. You have to really aim in order to achieve and things like that.
We are like, literal and stretching it.
Way too literal. And I thought Marvel. It was also a little much where like they're valet drivers and they really put their test, they were put to the test with their valet skills. Like, for example, Aquafina driving the bus. I'm like, okay, like what they do is not that special. She cannot drive a bus anywhere she wants to because she can drive a Mercedes down the street. And that makes no sense.
Hey, Dr. O, it was a BMW. And if you haven't seen, BMW had to pay money to like have their like, because they had that and then the i8 later down when she was driving the bus, they had the i8 like a nice sports car right there ready for her to trample over. So BMW had to pay for those two because they were apparent. I felt like I was watching a cable TV show on CBS, like a Hawaii 5-0, how they always had the Chevys always shown on the screen. Like they really wanted to show the camera work with the Chevy and the Camaro or whatever they were driving. I felt the same thing in this.
Do that. Dude, what's it called? Black Panther did the same thing. I forgot what car that was too. Remember that scene where they're leaving the casino?
Yeah,
that was like right in your face.
And like Iron Man does it with Audi.
Yeah, it's just like be a little more discreet about it. A little more discreet.
Like, we don't have to. You're making millions on the box office. Do we really need the extra couple million to showcase a BMW?
And then speaking of like characters that or actors that don't have a great reputation on this podcast, let's go into Sir Ben Kingsley making an appearance in this film, and not just a cameo. This is not a spoiler. Like Ben Kingsley as Trevor, the actor who faked being the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, has a substantial role in this movie. And I almost have similar thoughts to him as you do for Aquafina in terms of, at first, when I heard he was in this movie, I almost threw my computer across the room. I was like, I do not want to be reminded of the travesty of like having a fake Mandarin in Iron Man 3. Arguably, it is Iron Man's greatest foe. And it was a fake. Like I thought that was the biggest BS of all time. But in terms of this type of movie, right, comedic relief to kind of take some weight off all the kung fu action, I thought he was pretty decent, man. Like he was a funny actor.
Hey,
he was a funny actor, man.
Hey, like I agree with you. But I thought it's Ben Kingsley. Like, he's probably the best actor in this movie. Like as in pure actor. He's the best. Yeah, Prestige, the Oscar, whatever. But
Gandhi.
No matter how good he was in this, which I do think he was good, like shockingly, and it made sense. It actually made sense for him to be in it, and he wasn't in the fighting sequences, which is perfect. Aquafina, take notes, not her, but writers. But I still couldn't stop thinking how mad I was about Iron Man 3. Every time I saw him, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I couldn't do it, Dr. O.
He was arguably the best comic relief in the movie, though, I'd say. I think
he's hands down was him and the animal.
Yeah, that was great.
They were so good.
Like the crowd was literally roaring after he faked his death.
No, easily the biggest laughs.
Easily. So as we go on right now, Ricky Flex, I want to I kind of want to see where this compares to other origin movies in the MCU. Our top billing draft today will be on superhero origin movies. In terms of the MCU, though, I guess we think mainly phase 1, a couple phase 2 and phase 3 movies. Where do you think this ranks in the pantheon of those origin films?
I would say the low end of the first tier.
Low end.
How many have there been?
Like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel,
Black Widow. Do you count that?
I guess not Spider-Man Homecoming. That wouldn't count.
No, it doesn't count.
I guess it's lower tier, man. I was gonna put it smack
like,
dab in the middle. Like it's better than Captain Marvel. Like Black Widow, if you want to count that, it sort of is an origin story. It's better than It's better than Black Widow, in my opinion.
Lower first tier. Like I guess so smack dab in the middle since there's not that many. But yeah, like I think there's a couple that are obvious. I don't want to tease picks for later, but I think there's a couple obvious ones that audience you could probably think of what I'm thinking here. But it was good, but I do have my faults with it, and I don't want to say anything else until we get the spoilers.
I think
that's related to that.
I think it's time to throw out some scores, and then so we can get to those spoilers, and we can get to those post-credit scenes. So Ricky Flicks, what did you give Shang-Chi?
I gave it 73.
Wow.
Yeah, 73 from Ricky Flicks.
So your biggest detractor being the CGI and like I guess the outrageousness of some of the story a little bit, you know? Like what's because so by the way you were talking, I'm kind of shocked by that.
I know. We haven't gotten to it because I didn't want to do any spoilers because I have a story from inside the theater about it. But there are some lulls in this movie. There are lulls in this movie, like some big ones, like 20-minute stretches. I need to
admit something. I need to admit something to the audience.
Doctor, I have to admit something as well, but you go first.
So I was coming off a long weekend where I went to a music festival on Saturday. Sunday, I went to a wedding. And then I saw it the next day at 2:00 on Labor Day, Labor Day. I did fall asleep for about 10 minutes of the movie. And I don't know whether it was due to my tiredness or it was the lack of action, maybe when they went to go see Shang-Chi's on. Because I think there were some low moments, especially at that time.
Doctor, at that time, I was wide awake before that time. I was starting to fall asleep.
Wow.
When they got the Tolo or whatever you have pronounced it, I really had to struggle to stay awake. It was bad, Doctor. Wow. I was really struggling to stay awake.
Maybe it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
I'm Doctor, Doctor, you told me this after you saw the movie. You like texted me like I couldn't, like I was struggling, and I said, dude, like you're just tired. Like
it's impacting my score now. I'm thinking about it.
And then I saw the movie the next day. Like it was at night, but it wasn't crazy. Like it wasn't like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever at night. And it was at that time. And I'm like, I'm so engaged from all this action sequences and I'm wondering what's going to happen. But that time was so slow. I was just falling asleep.
I think that. So
and I never fall asleep in movies. I know how bad a movie is.
So I was on the border, whether it's this hit in the 80s or the 70s. I think after hearing you almost had the same experience as me. And I also did not like how the fight ended. I didn't like how Aquafina was such a major part of it, but I don't think like she had any business being there. Man, I guess I'm going to go 79. I'm going to go 79. I didn't
mean to convince you.
But I was just like, maybe it wasn't me. I thought I was just zonked and I was just tired and I couldn't handle it. But I think that was a low point. That was a low point.
The first 20 minutes of this film, right up to the bus scene, I thought was bad. I was getting nervous for a second, but I was like, just hang in there. It was bad. The
build-up wasn't that good.
It was really bad. But I think it was just like shit. I don't know. Movie jitters. The movie jitters.
Yeah, it's like, but it's also like MCU, like right. And honestly, like the fact that there was also some unbelievability in terms of like when he got to the U.S. and everything.
Oh God.
And like, and like she doesn't know where he came from. She doesn't know anything about him. I found that to be very strange.
Yeah. You know each other for 6 years and or whatever.
Just the job as a valet. I thought was so weird. Yeah. I thought that was so weird. I thought I was watching Key and Peele when they're valets. And what's that line from was that Liam Neeson?
Taken two.
That's Liam Neeson's. That's all I kept thinking of when I saw them, like the two of them standing together. So we got 73 from Ricky Flicks, 79 from Dr. O. We are now going to move on to our spoiler section, primarily to go over the post-credit scenes. All right, Ricky Flicks. Post-credit. I think this is necessary to talk about. I feel like there's not many spoilers in the movie I really care about. We could talk about Wong a little bit. I guess we can start there. I thought Wong I like Wong in Doctor Strange. I like him in his other cameos. Here, he's a little slapstick. He's a little too slapstick for me.
Besides the karaoke, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I like the karaoke match because they did it earlier, and I think that match, but everything else, I agree.
Little slapstick, but he was a little it just doesn't fit the vibe he has set in as a character in other movies. It almost like has like the tone of like Thor and Thor Ragnarok all of a sudden being a comedic guy, but at the same time, Wong, he didn't need to change. Like he was always like, he was throwing out like subtle shots and funny jabs before that, you know, he was just a different, it felt like a different type of character. So did you enjoy Wong in this movie and what he brought to the table?
I agree with you. I thought the Abomination fight scene was good, very short but good, and you knew that
was cool.
And then the locker room scene was obviously the slapstick, one of the slapsticks you were referring to, but you knew that wasn't going to be the last time you see him because he's such a fan favorite. Wong is that you knew that couldn't have just been it. You knew he was coming back at some point, whether it was to help them fight, which is highly doubtful, but that or a post-credit scene. So you knew he was coming back. But I agree with you on Wong.
It'd be interesting. We did like a MCU draft of non-Avengers, so like non-major characters, and Wong is up there. He's a fan favorite for sure. That's a great point. But I think we should now move on to the post-credit scene where Wong approaches Simu Liu, Shang Chi, and Aquafina, and he takes them through one of the portals that Doctor Strange famously forms, and he brings them to a face-to-face meeting with Brie Larson as Captain Marvel and a very aged looking Bruce Banner
and a broken arm,
presumably from the snap that he committed in Avengers Endgame. And he also noticeably is not green. He's not Professor Hulk. He's back to being regular.
Right.
Bruce
That
Banner.
was the biggest takeaway.
So that's going to be interesting because I guess Mark Ruffalo, like, what's his standing for the rest of the MCU? Yes, he's going to be in She-Hulk, but are we going to see him as like a mentor role, similar to like maybe an assistant, like to Nick Fury in the future of the MCU? Will he ever be Hulk again?
I think so. I don't think you could have Bruce Banner and just never be Hulk again. And you're just going to keep using him in like a Nick Fury type role as like a consultant or advisor. Mm-hmm. I think that's just, I don't know. Mark Ruffalo has come out and said that he is willing to do Hulk, and he's like doing all these different drama projects, that HBO show. Like he's done so many things.
We need a Hulk movie. We need a Hulk movie.
We still haven't done a Hulk Mark Ruffalo movie. Like we just had Abomination like in this movie. Like if they do a She-Hulk movie before a Hulk movie, we're gonna have some problems.
Why can't Marvel make a deal with Universal, a la Marvel with Sony? Why can't they get a deal done to make a Hulk movie?
Or are they just not trying? Because they don't. I don't know. I haven't heard anything, but it's very odd.
It's been lucrative for Sony for Spider-Man, like Universal. If they had a Marvel movie in connection with the MCU, that would be incredible. And like Mark Ruffalo is such a fan favorite actor, and not just in the Hulk is a fan favorite character. Putting those together would be magic. But it was interesting to see him in the post credit. It was kind of unexpected. Even I guess maybe because you had Abomination.
Right.
You know?
So that was gonna be my last thing on that, is that Abomination's in this movie, and they didn't just pick a random throwback character. They know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Abomination's gonna be in either in She-Hulk or in a possible Hulk movie or She-Hulk movie.
I think he's confirmed to be in She-Hulk.
Abomination. Oh, so there's a little intro. Okay. And by the way, so dumb. Like what? Tim Roth? He's not like, I don't remember him being that dumb in Incredible Hulk.
No, it was a totally almost different character.
Yeah, it was like, it's like they just threw that out and just did a new Abomination.
Yeah. And then like, what do you think of like Brie? So like, first of all, I think we need to tell the audience and like kind of explain what was happening there. So in Shang-Chi, when he had the 10 rings and he gained them from his father after his father passed away, Tony Leung, and passed them on to him, there was like a burst that they sensed, that they detected, meaning Mark Ruffalo and Brie Larson. And they are, I think, pointing at the potential for this burst, like coming from another dimension. I think it's trying to bring together some type of multiverse aspect, something that has dominated Loki, something that's been hinted at in WandaVision, and something that has totally been exposed in Spider-Man No Way Home. I think it's kind of like trying to like pull you towards this grander scale, this grander movie that will eventually come, right, in the MCU. What do you think about that theory?
I like it, but I just don't think they upped it enough. They didn't give us enough, or they just didn't do enough to make me excited, because you kind of got that sense throughout the movie already with these 10 rings. And the way it ended, just Shang Chi says, "Oh, so like where is it from?" And Brie Larson's like, literally the next line was, "Oh, I gotta go." Oh, so this isn't the most important thing on your docket. Something else is more important than maybe the end of the universe. What are we talking about? I hate how they does that. I'm telling you,
It's not the
Miss
first time she's done that either.
Like Miss Marvel, we have an issue already. Like
The Marvels,
the Marvels, whatever. We have an issue. And Mark Ruffalo just saying, "Oh yeah, I gotta go too." Disappointed with Bruce Banner. Disappointed.
Like, this seems like it's a pretty important thing, especially by the fact Simu Liu just saved the world in Shang-Chi. I guess also what I wanted to bring up, you had those two characters, one that was a core member of the first Avengers, another one that like supposedly going to be a primary member of the Avengers or whatever group they assemble moving forward. What in 5 years do you think a Avengers team will look like in the
So
MCU?
I had that same question I was going to ask you, because now, like, Simon Leon, like, obviously you mentioned like he was in that Canadian comedy series, and I mentioned he's in the stock images. So he is Shang-Chi now. Like, this is his thing. Like, he will probably be Shang-Chi for as long as it runs, right? Is he going to be a leader on the Avengers? Probably not, because he's not a core comic book character from Marvel, right? Is he going to be a side character? Is he going to be a core Avenger where he's like one of the 5? The 10 rings probably makes it likely.
A powerful character now.
And if you think of the other origin movies coming out, Blade is a solo show. He is not Avenger. I don't know what they're going to do with that. If they just do a separate trilogy, that would be, I'm honestly more on board with a separate trilogy with Marshall Ali doing like a Dark Knight thing.
He doesn't really
I would love that.
He doesn't really fit with these other characters.
Blade does not fit. By the way, Blade, a teaser for later. But
maybe with a Moon Knight,
that's good. But yeah, I just really don't know. I think we'll learn more after Spider-Man and Doctor Strange with the multiverse, and that's going to open up the 10 Rings backstory that we have no idea what's going on now. But I could see him teaming up with like a Spider-Man or like Doctor Strange. You heard
Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah, like he could appear in that. You heard in the interview press tour that Simon Leon was doing how he got asked the question, who would win in a fight, Spider-Man or him? So maybe they team up for something. So maybe not necessarily an Avenger movie to start, but first a team up, maybe like a Civil War aspect or something like that.
Right. Almost like what we were hinting at with Quantumania, right? Once again, hinting at the multiverse.
Maybe with the new Captain America.
Boom. Just like that. So I guess like a new Avengers team. First of all, you're going to have a Captain America at the center of it. Anthony Mackie would be involved, no doubt, after the popularity of this movie, let alone in a pandemic where the box offices have not been succeeding. You saw like what Venom Let There Be Carnage did. They moved their date up after seeing what the damage Shang-Chi did at the box office, even though I don't think it's going to do those same numbers. Shang-Chi will be in that core, I think. I think like they have kind of
the
built
10 rings, yeah.
Yeah, he will be in there. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, I would assume would be a part of that. Except we don't know what Wanda, like how she's like going to react after the end of WandaVision.
And more Vision.
She wasn't necessarily a hero, right, during WandaVision, and she's not necessarily all redeemed after WandaVision. Like, will she potentially be a dark, maybe villain-esque character in the Multiverse of Madness? We can't rule that out either, man. That would be fascinating. I just her and Doctor Strange go toe to toe.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I just really think that Marvel might just do team ups for right now, because like how many group movies do we have going? We got Eternals next month. We got the X-Men. They're going to do an X-Men project.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus and her characters you've been recruiting.
And they got Fantastic Four, John Watts. They have a lot of team movies coming out. So they're not going to do an Avengers movie for a while. So maybe they just do these team ups. Like it's the Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and No Way Home. They have that one coming out. Multiverse of Madness. Wanda's got to be in that. So Wanda, Doctor Strange at the minimum in that one. So maybe they just do these like partnerships until like 10 years down the road, they do an Avengers movie again. Because I'm still thinking Infinity War Endgame, like that was like a short time ago. we don't need an Avengers movie right now, like a big one.
Right.
We can wait a long time, and we're gonna get a lot of these group movies coming out, team movies coming out already.
Right. And like, I guess these team movies that you're talking about, I guess they might be even seen in a show like Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character with John Walker and Yelena Belova having already been recruited, Fantastic Four, X-Men, yada, yada, yada. Recently, the Russo brothers were approached by Marvel to do another movie. And what movie have they been like on public note, had a desire to do is Secret Wars. Like, imagine 10 years from now, the Russo brothers return to make a Secret Wars movie.
They could.
And of these teams.
The Gray Man franchise would be dead by then. Like, they're only going to do 2 or 3 movies, and that's it. Because Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans aren't just going to be a part of a franchise again, or at least Chris Evans won't. So it just makes sense.
Like, I don't even know what it's way down the line. You have no idea. This is like probably going to happen. The Secret Wars movie would happen probably after like this multiverse era of the MCU is done. Because like you have Kang the Conqueror, who looks like he's going to be some type of, if not the big bad in the MCU. So I don't know if like who the Eternals are going to introduce. Will Galactus be introduced with the Fantastic Four? But right now, Kang the Conqueror
Dr. Doom
is such a sizable character that needs to be addressed. And I wonder, I guess Quantumania could be
that's
like
going to be
the demise of that character, but that's why I'm saying this could be the next.
Wow.
This could be the next Civil War. Like that's the next Civil War.
Yeah,
it could. The Quantumania might end this multiverse era, I guess, in the MCU. Right?
You think that early?
I don't, because like we're having Spider-Man.
There's so many stories you could do in the multiverse.
Yeah, but like who
else?
else?
Money out there they can.
What else would they do? Like that Miles Morales, I guess maybe
they could do a lot. They could just bring back characters too.
Yeah, but like who would they bring back?
Chris Evans, Captain America. He's been rumored to come back. Remember that?
Okay,
you could do that.
Dip back as the MCU.
Yeah, you can go backwards, or you can just
like
a Miles Morales. You could do that. Different iterations of a character. There's so many different things in the comics where you have different like elements and different types of Spider-Man and different everything. Like you can do a lot of different things. They will not close this door that soon.
They have the Marvel What If show, the animated series going on right now.
Right.
Do you think if a story hits hard enough, it might get a live action adaptation?
With What If, I said like I think it's gonna like connect somehow. Like I just did.
Do you think maybe like so you're saying like after this episode you're like, wow, like Captain Carter was so electric, let's bring her in for one of the movies, and all of a sudden she's from the multiverse, she's being brought in. Maybe you have
why not?
Maybe like evil Doctor Strange from episode 4 of What If just come out of nowhere.
Audience have seen episode 5 of What If, you'll understand this. That like episode 5 is clearly a different dimension than another in these first 5 episodes. It's not the same dimension. They're all different dimensions here. So it is like very interesting. They could bring a character from that and just do a movie from it. Wow. Like you just said. Like I bet
can't rule it out.
Yeah, you just can't.
Can't rule it out. Ricky Flex. So the Ricky Flex, that does it for our Shang Chi review, an electric review. Can't wait for the next Marvel project to drop, which is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Eternals.
Oh shoot, you're right. Eternals next Spider-Man No Way Home.
And
yes, potentially MCU, probably not, but potentially MCU.
You know my theory.
Okay, so that does it for our review of Shang-Chi. So next week we have The Card Counter, starring Oscar Isaac, Tiffany Haddish, and Willem Dafoe, which stands at a 97% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. What was that, Ricky Flex?
And Kagan.
And Barry Kagan.
Your boy. Yeah,
my boy. Yeah, Barry Kagan. So that's going to be an electric review. It's coming out on Netflix. Make sure you watch it before we review it next week.